Okay, for this one, I started off with a cube on the horizon already, making sure that everything's lined up to the vanishing points like it was before and all the other work we've been doing. What you're gonna do is, on the left side here, create a door. Doors are from the previous lesson. You know that you create them by putting two vertical lines in. You don't just connect the tops, but you actually draw the line to the vanishing point. Make that one a little longer. I want a high door for this. Coming down, here's my door. Now, we would normally erase the bottom and extend our lines back to make the interior of our door, but today we're not gonna make a square door, but in fact an arched door. So what I want you to do is, in the space where you've created your door, I want you to make a very light X going corner to corner. A very light X corner to corner. Do not push hard. Don't even push as hard as I did. I just did that so you could see it on the video. Now this X allows us to get perspective center. If we go from the center of the X straight up and make a little tick mark here, that's the center of our doorway. And perspective center is actually different than literal center in a lot of cases, because if you're somewhere else on the page trying to find the center of an opening, it could be skewed a lot more than the literal center. Just like the center on the sides of this door, if you look, the X here is, the center of the X is just below where I erased my horizon line. So when I line up to make my little tick marks on the side, they're actually slightly below my horizon line. And by making this X, we create perspective center on our shape, because this actual side of the door is longer than this side, and the center of those is relative to the angle, all right? So you can't just make any structure on the side of a door or on the side of a building and go, okay, here's the center, because that's not perspective center. Perspective center would actually be more like over here. Just like you can't just say, oh, halfway up this is perspective center, because if we think about how this lines up through there, perspective center is actually down here on this side, okay? But forget all that, we're working over here. Now, after I have created this X and these tick marks, I can create an arched door by very carefully and freehanding in a curve from that point to that point. I can do the same thing on the other side, keeping in mind the perspective of my door. Notice how this area is not equal to this area. That's because we've drawn this curve in perspective, and it's given us an accurate arch that also exists in perspective. And this can become our arched doorway. I could then erase my corners, erase the X, and I have this kind of arched opening. Now, this still isn't complete though, because just like with a door, we're gonna have some interior space. You could do your interior space two ways. One, you could just extend it all the way. Looks a lot like a tunnel. Or if you want, after extending it, you could pick a point here in which to go up and gently sketch in the curve of the arch. You could then remove that extra part there, and you kind of have the thickness of the arch defined. Even more so, if you need to put the back of the building in place, you could go from this far corner right up here and go back, and now it looks like the wall, there's the interior of the space. The same is true from the top corner over here. I would see that interior wall even though that arch is there. And that's how you create arches. Now, if we come over to this other side here, and you really want to think about how you could use arches in your drawing, you could do something so far as to make a window, line it up. Dang, you see that? Man, I'm good. Didn't have to erase anything. I could X corner to corner to find my perspective center of this window. Notice how here the center of this window, that's not the center of this line. This line is almost 2/3 on this side, 1/3 on this side because of perspective center. Going through the center of my X, it's actually a little above the horizon line. But here, I could then put in all of these curves all the way around. Very carefully. Doing all four sides. And effectively, this would make a round window in this space in proper perspective. It doesn't look like a perfect circle because the perspective actually skews it and makes it look more like an egg or an ellipse. Now that I've got my circle all in there, in fact, I might bring it out a bit like that. Make it a little more accurate. There we go. I can erase everything else. I have my nice round window in the side of my building. A lot of old houses sometimes have rounded windows in them, right? Then all I got to figure out is my curve. We know I'm on the right side of the box, so I'm going to see this interior right part of the curve. Come in and put in the curve of my rounded window as it would appear in space. And that's something you can play around with, is doing a round window as opposed to a square window, or doing rounded shapes. Heck, if we were to spin this around, all of a sudden this becomes a weird U-shaped notch as opposed to a door. So you can play with your ideas using curves and arches.